Hi, I'm Pastor Kurt, and this is your 5-minute Bible study. Today, we're going to be looking at 1 Kings chapter 6. This is when King Solomon builds the temple in Jerusalem. Now, a little bit of background first for how we got here. Solomon is King David's son, and when David started his reign as king, he noticed that he, as the king, was living in this wonderful building, while the Ark of the Covenant was still in this tent. The Ark of the Covenant, of course, was the box that contained the tablets of the law, or the Ten Commandments, Moses' staff, and some of the manna from the wilderness. It was symbolic of God's presence with the people. So David thought it wasn't right that the Ark, as important as it is, that it shouldn't have its own house. So David tells God that he's going to build this house. Well, then God tells David, have I ever asked you to build me a house? No. Instead, I am going to build you a house, David. So there's an interesting play on words with the word house here. When David talks about house, he's thinking of a building, an actual structure. When God talks about house, God's talking about David's lineage, his line, his descendants, the house of David. God does say that David's son will build the temple. So it's not that the temple's not important. It's just that God's promise to David comes first. So now that Solomon is on the throne, Solomon fulfills that and he builds the temple for God. If you read this chapter 6, it's very boring because it's very descriptive about what the temple looked like. And in one sense, it doesn't really make for engaging reading, but in another sense, it's great because it tells us what the temple looked like. If you do a YouTube search for 3D computer-generated Solomon's temple, you will find some really cool videos. Some people have taken the descriptions provided in the Bible and recreated Solomon's temple in computer graphics. Some of them are really cool. It's like you can take a tour of the temple just by this video. The temple was exquisite. Now, of course, if you go to Jerusalem today, there's no temple. Solomon's temple was eventually destroyed. There was a second temple built, and it was eventually destroyed. But the place where the temple was is said to be the same spot where the Dome of the Rock currently is in Jerusalem. So this is a very important spot in Jerusalem. One other thing to notice about the temple is that the temple is different than a synagogue. A synagogue is a place of learning. The temple is the place you go to offer sacrifices. So there's all sorts of synagogues. Synagogues were all over the place, but there was only one temple. Now, why is this important? Why is it important to hear about the temple? Well, it's important because it's a sacred space. Think about sacred spaces for you. Think about church buildings, for example. Why do we have buildings? If we can worship God anywhere, which we can, why do we have a particular building? Because we have a sacred space there. Certain things happen there that don't happen anywhere else. At the temple, the thing that happened there was sacrifice. When you come together as a church community in a building, there's something special. Of course, the church is not the building, right? If the building was destroyed, we'd still be the church. We could meet somewhere else. But there's something special about being able to come together in a certain spot to worship God. We need these sacred spaces. Some people have said that sacred spaces are like a thin place between heaven and earth, where you get this glimpse of heaven. When we gather together for worship, we can see that, especially in Holy Baptism and Holy Communion. We get this reminder that Christ is always with us, but we know that he's with us in the sacraments. This is why sacred spaces are so important, both for us and back then. There's your 5-minute Bible study for today. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.